The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar all about service desk automation and what that means in practice really. We're lucky enough today to be hearing from two presenters, Mark Bassett, Head of Service Management at Barnardos, and also Mike Beckett, Senior Solutions Consultant for IT Alerting at Everbridge. Now we're going to hear from Mark first and then we'll hand over to Mike. But please do write down any questions or post any questions as the sessions are going along, and we'll come to all of those at the very end. So do remember, if you need to leave at any point, the recordings will be available afterwards as well, but hopefully you can join us throughout. So first of all, I'm going to, as I say, hand over to Mark. Just going to make you a presenter now, Mark, and we should have him on the line now. Hi, Mark.
Hi, yeah. How are you doing?
Very
good. Thank you, everybody, for coming along.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. I know you've been working with SDI a fair bit lately, and it's been really good to hear lots of your stories about everything that's happening at Barnardos. And I know you've just come back from quite a long holiday, so I really appreciate you doing this for us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it was been away for a month visiting Vietnam, so that was quite an interesting little journey. Had a lovely time there. Tried some interesting food. We were munching on jellyfish salad and pig's brains. So some interesting fare. Not stuff that I think I would go back and try again, but interesting to try them once.
Try it all once. Yeah, absolutely. Well, well, as I say, appreciate making the switch back to work mode and coming back in with straight away with a webinar. So that's brilliant. Without further ado, I think I'll let you get started, and I'll hop back in at the end. I know we've got a few polls coming up in your session, haven't we? So everyone listening, make sure you do take part in those. It's really, really helpful for us. And Mark will prompt you when those are coming up. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Hopefully you'll get something useful or interesting, at least, out of both these sessions. So we're just going to be chatting about automation. And is it really the end of the desk? Do we need the desk anymore? Can the desk go off and do something less boring instead? So I wonder if I could do a quick poll at the moment, Zoe, if we could do a quick first poll for the guys. Just want to try and find out if you're currently using automation at the moment. Are you doing anything with automation, however basic or advanced that might be? I know we've got quite a few attendees on the session, so it just gives me a little idea of where I'm pitching at if you've been doing automation already.
So it looks like nearly everyone has voted, so I'll close the poll. So the results are in. 51% yes, 49% no.
Okay, so for those of you that are already doing it, hopefully there might be some little tidbits for you. For those who aren't doing it, hopefully we can encourage you to do it. It's been really useful for us here at Barnardos. So a little bit quick little bit about Barnardos. If you know or not, we're one of the UK's largest leading children's charities. We've been going for over 150 years now, supporting young children, parents, families. We're working with, that number is now a little bit out of date. It's now 270,000 children and young people. I got the latest numbers start of this week. And we're running over 996 vital services across the UK, and we're working to transform the lives of the UK's most vulnerable people. And to support that organisation, we have a service desk of 8 full-time staff, 1 part-time staff, 2 apprentices and 4 contractors. So it's a fair-sized team, but we're very busy. We're dealing with over 4,500 contacts a month. And that's split roughly 80% incidents, 20% service requests, and we're resolving about 75% of the incidents at the desk. And our customer satisfaction is pretty high. Our number has gone up again over the past 3 weeks, we're now hitting an average of 95% customer satisfaction, and a fair bit of that is down to quite a bit of the automation that we do. As I say, we're supporting 8,500 customers who are our internal colleagues, so we've got quite a large user base to support. So automation is quite important to us in terms of making sure we can deal with as much as we can as quickly as we can. And our desk have our SDI 3-star certification, which has helped drive some of those processes and some of that automation forward. So what is automation? Why would you do automation? I mean, for us, we found that as far as I'm concerned, machines are far better at doing those boring, repetitive tasks. They don't lose that focus, they don't get bored with it, and they do it the same way every time. They consistently deliver the same output, the same result to the same input. So I know what I'm going to get when I'm automating something. And from our point of view as well, if you're not adding any value to the process, why are you doing it? When we looked at our processes, we found that we were taking tickets where all we were doing on the desk was checking things, make sure the right form had been used or the right details had been filled in and it had been completed properly, and it was really adding no value to the customer, and all we're really doing is adding a bit of delay into the process before it's being escalated to the fulfillment team to deliver what was being required. When we stopped doing that and we automated our logins, we removed 4,500 requests, new login requests in a year from the desk, and about 2 minutes a ticket just to go through and check all the right things and forward it on. We saved about 19 days in just automating one process. So there's lots of savings to be found around your desk and the tasks they're doing with automation. The ACD system, dealing with contact allocation. So whether you think you're doing automation or not, you probably find that you are. The ACD system is automating those calls out to the right people, and it's helped us in terms of bringing our apprentices on board. We can decide which phone calls those apprentices get given, and that they're at the right level. So a bit of skill routing there, which is automation. And you're probably already doing some prioritizing of tickets based on criteria like urgency and impact and assigning a priority to it. That's an automation. And SLAs potentially being assigned to tickets based upon criteria like what asset it is, or what part of the organization it is, or what client or customer it is. So when you say you're not doing automation, you probably are, you just don't realize it. And could we have a little poll too for us, Zoe? Just want to try and understand, in terms of what you guys do with automation, what is it you're looking for? What are the benefits that you either get if you're doing it, or that you're hoping to get if you do it? What are you looking for from automation?
So we've got about 80% of the votes in, and we'll just give that a few more seconds. If people can please select their answer. Okay, I'll close that off now and I'll share the results. Okay, so we've got 71% save time, and then all the other three options are at 10%.
Okay, and that's interesting to hear. For us, time saving was one of the criteria for automation for us, but also as a charity, cost was quite important for us. So I mean, so at the end of the day, it's time and money in terms of what we were looking for automation. I mean, I doubt that any of the people controlling your purse strings are saying to you, you know what, have some more budget. We're giving you more money this year. Go out, get more people, do more work with more people. So, I mean, in the third sector, cost is always going to be an issue, and we're always trying to do more with less. So we've got to be continually driving efficiencies, and one of the easiest ways to do that we were able to identify was automating stuff. And we tended to find as well, our service desk were quite successful. Like I say, we've got our certification. We're achieving quite a good score on that. We're delivering good service to the organisation, but one of the problems with that success is the better you are, the more people are contacting you, and the more services you introduce, the more people are going to use them. So you've got to continually be trying to reduce the contacts that you have so that you can actually deal with those issues that are causing the customer problems. And that's where the automation has been helping drive those efficiencies for us. Better knowledge management and better self-service have also helped. I'm not going to say it's all down to automation, but it's been one of the key drivers for us. You know, overall ticket volumes are never going to be going down, and staffing levels are not going to suddenly grow. So you've got to be managing those contacts with your desk as best you can. And the more that you can get managed automated without requiring a person intervening in it, the cheaper it is and the quicker it is to deliver. And if you're smart about how you manage the contacts, then the guys and girls on the desk can be smart about how they spend their time dealing with what are the real issues for the customer. As an example, one of our guys, when we were automating the password reset stuff, rather than having to spend time on passwords, he was able to spend a bit of time learning some scripting, and created a little script to automate a fix for an issue for us. Now, it wasn't a major issue. It was a toolbar vanishing from the Office product. And it was just a case of going in and re-enabling a disabled toolbar. But again, it was taking time for the customers to call up, get us to re-enable it. The guys were having to either talk the customer through or remote on and do it. So for the time that he spent, that was freed up for him to spend learning a bit of scripting, something that was taking 2 minutes for us to do for the customer is now taking 20 seconds to run the script. And we're looking to then now package the script and push it out to the customers so they can just run it from their desktop, so they don't even have to contact us when it goes wrong. So there's lots of innovative ways that you can automate things and make things smarter and easier for the customer. And automation also assists the customers in that they can provide the appropriate or the right information to get their resolutions quickly and easily. So when they're filling out self-service requests, we're automating the questions we ask them so that they're giving us the right information that we can just go ahead and deal with their issue quickly and easily. It's improved productivity for both the desk and the customer, as we're getting the right information to be able to go and fix it faster, and the customer's getting a faster fix and up and running quickly. It's improved our customer satisfaction scores. As I say, they're still going up, and it's improved team morale. The team are far happier when they know the customers are happier with them, when we're feeding back to them and going, hey guys, we achieved 100% customer satisfaction yesterday. It's a real nice thing for the desk guys, and it really motivates them for the coming day. So I think from this, what we really learned and what we really took from this is asking the question, are we actually adding any value, or are we just an obstacle in this process? And how can we take ourselves out of it and make it smoother and easier for the customer? What you've got to remember is, if the customer's not happy and thinks they're losing time trying to get their needs fulfilled, you're going to lose that goodwill with them. So automating makes it quicker, easier, slicker for the customer, and improves that customer satisfaction, and improves, like I say, morale for the desk and for the customer. And automation has enabled a reduction in the actual contacts we need to make with the customer as well. A lot of our contacts now are emails back to the customer we can templated. So again, we pick the template. It's a form of automation. The email is already typed out, ready to go. Some details get dropped in from the ticket, and the customer gets it. So we're reducing how much the guys need to do and what they need to do with the customers. So important though is what is it that you're going to automate? So as I say, you're probably doing automation without realizing it, and if you do realize you're doing automation, you've made some decisions about what you want to automate. For us, the most important thing around what we did was talking to the customers, finding out what they would like to see automated, what they thought would make things easier for them to do, and by giving them those things that they were asking for, it encouraged them to use those self-service processes where things were workflowed and scripted and automated and the desk didn't have to touch them. And by giving them those things they asked for, they went in there to use them and then found other new things that they didn't know were there and started using those as well. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy for us. Once we started the customers down that automation and self-service route, this was something that they really took on and really carried on using. Probably our biggest win, where we've saved our most money, is looking at our fulfillment requests. And we started to automate those processes. There was rarely a lot of actual intervention required. The desk, all that was happening with the automation, with the request fulfillment stuff, was the desk were checking a form had been filled in and passing it on to the fulfillment team. We've taken that away from the desk. The customers can now only request things through the portal, and that's reduced about 4,000, just over 4,000 new logins, just over 9,000 procurement requests coming through the desk, with the desk having to do something about them. And looking at the timings on those, last year, that was 61 days that we saved through having those processes on our self-service portal and automated, so that the desk didn't see anything of those requests. So overall, that was about 3 months of one. That's where we got our 3 months of one FTE no longer needed to triage and forward on those tickets. So it was quite a big saving for us as an organisation. And another good saving was around, like I said, the communication. Most of the service management systems can automate communication for you, can alert customers to updates on tickets, and can alert customers when things are resolved or if there's more information needed. And as long as you've got the right template and you put the wording in properly so it's understandable by the customer, it's a win-win. Customers are kept up to date, don't need to keep emailing or phoning you. And for the desk, it's a one click and the customer gets all the information they need. Our system that we use also allows us to create quick solutions. So again, we automate some of the call closures for the desk, where we've got a regular issue or a regular resolution that we use. We can use a quick solution, one click of the key for the desk, it fills in the resolution, the CI type, all the required information that we need in the call, and closes the call. So it's far more consistent for me from reporting, because I'm getting the same information in each of those calls each time, and it's far easier for the desk because they can close it nice and quickly without having to type out the same thing again and again. And it's certainly something that the desk like and has made their lives far easier. One thing that I have found and that I did sort of like was Bill Gates's quote: "Automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency, and automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency." Now, while point one is great, point two is less great. Point two doesn't mean that you shouldn't automate something, though. Automation won't improve an inefficient operation. However, it will get things done quicker. So just because the operation isn't perfect doesn't mean that you shouldn't automate it and get it done quicker while you're looking to improve it. So you need to consider what you're automating and the benefits of that automation, and make sure when you're looking at which bits you're going to automate, you try and automate those ones where there's a benefit for the customer as well. At the end of the day, we're here to serve a customer, and we need to make sure that what we're doing is for their benefit and not just for ours. But how do we actually do the automation? What do we automate? How do we automate everything? Obviously, we can't automate everything. But as I said before, talk to your customers. Ask your customers or your users what they want you to be automating, what they want you to make easier. Don't forget to benchmark, measure how much time and effort it currently takes to do the tasks, know where you're starting from, and then you can don't forget to also measure how much time and effort the customer needs to invest in the process as well. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much time you save your team, if the customer isn't getting any benefit and any time savings from it, they're not going to be that interested in using it. So you've got to sell it to them as well. And talk to the customers, like I say, ask what they want to see automated. If you give them something that they want to use, they're far more likely to go and use it, and then to use the other things that are there. And so, although a particularly automated process may not save you time, if it's saving the customer time, it's getting them into the habit of using those self-service and automated processes, and it makes it easier to bring the next process online. But don't forget to include your colleagues. It's not just about the desk. These tickets, these calls paying for other teams. One of the things that we've taken on board is understanding where they're not getting the right information when tickets are passed over, and making sure that where possible we can pull in that information for them from other systems like SCCM, where we can automate a link in to the CIs and gather the required information that those third level teams need to resolve tickets, so that they don't have to go out and find it themselves. And when you've done an automation process, don't forget to look at the numbers afterwards, so that you can report back on, like I say, benchmark it first, and then you can report back to your customers and colleagues on what that saving has been for the team or for the customer. And it could be that things are getting done quicker. It could be that things are getting done easier for other teams. They're getting the right information. The customer's getting the widget in an hour rather than 4 days. So don't forget to feed back what you found in terms of a benefit from this process, so that you can sell doing the next one. But as I've mentioned through this, don't forget it's always for your customer. At the end of the day, customers have got to use it. If you haven't talked and engaged them with what you want to automate and design processes that support them, they're not going to use it. Show them what it saved them, what the benefits have been of doing it. One of the things we took away was approvals. Requests weren't getting approved quickly enough by managers, and most people weren't requesting anything that was outrageous. So we've taken away the approval requirement for fulfillment requests. The manager still gets an email to say that it's been requested, but we don't wait for him to approve it. The manager gets the notification, the customer gets the product a lot quicker. And don't forget, you've got to make the customer use these things. From our point of view, we no longer accept fulfillment requests through anything other than our self-service portal. If customers call up asking for a laptop or a new login, they're directed back to the portal. It's driving that change in the customer's habits and behaviour. Once their first month is over, it gets a lot easier and people are a lot more comfortable with using it, and will go back and use it again and again. But also do take feedback from them. If they are telling you that it's not working or something's not right, or they don't like how it's happening, look to change it. You can't keep forcing them to use something that's not working for them. It's got to be something that's fluid and something that they want. And like I say, change it, make sure it works for them. It could be something like there's too many questions to answer. Maybe they don't need to answer all the questions. Maybe you can have the questions popping up smartly. If you answer yes to this, then you get the next question. If you answer no to it, we don't bother asking you the next question. It may be that some of these things are just on the form and the customers don't need to fill them out, but just seeing them there scares them. It could be, why can't it auto-populate this with some of this information already? You've got it. Why can't you put it in there for me? It could be simple things. So just take that feedback from the customer, learn from it, and improve that process for them. Don't be afraid to change the processes, because the question is, what does the customer need? What's going to be easy for them? And if you change it, they'll keep using it. So for them, what's in it for them? For the customer, it's about making it easier to contact you, easier to get what they want when they need it, with as few delays as possible, getting all the right information gathered in one sitting. There's less backwards and forwards. The customers aren't getting chased for that extra piece of information. And the customers can see what they need to do and what they need to provide and what's happening with their request. Our automation allows tickets to be directed quickly to the right teams to process the request. This reduces delays in the tickets that were manually handled, much quicker for the customer, as I said. And the responses to the customer's requests make it much easier to deal with for the forwarding teams when it's been filled out online and they've got all the right information. And ultimately, it's about driving improved productivity for the customer, because they spend less time talking to us and more time doing their job. But we mustn't forget what's in it for me, for my teams, and for my escalation teams. It's about having the right information to deal with that customer's need at the right time. We've got less tickets to the desk being done where we're adding no value, so the desk are more productive. They're now dealing with issues that are actually adding benefits to the customer. Like I say, we've removed over 60 days work from the desk, and this has allowed time for them to start getting involved with other work, being more proactive about some of the things they're fixing for customers. It's driven up our customer satisfaction, and there's a recognition around the organisation that the team are good at what they do, and are being quite proactive. We're now getting the opportunity to call up the customers to say, hey, we know we have this issue, and we've seen from our records that you could be suffering from this. Can I just get on and fix this for you before it actually becomes a problem, before you actually use that application or do that task and notice that it's an issue? Can I fix it so when you go and do it, it just works? Which has been great, again, for the desk's morale. They're not being moaned at that something's broken. They're being thanked that they've come along to fix something before the customers even noticed it. Well, so for me, good automation will generate more contacts from the customers as they become happier with the service you provide, the ease of contacting you, the resolutions that they get, which will mean you need to automate more. So once you've started automating, you can't stop. Well, not until the AIs take over. And as I say, that's a whole different story. I just wanted to ask one last question for you guys. If you'd like to pop that up, Zoe.
Right, there we go. That's launched in now. You should see it in a second. So there are a couple of different questions on here, depending on whether you're automating yet or not already. So just please answer the one that's relevant to you. Okay, a few more seconds. Great, I'll close that there. If I share those results, okay, we've got 29% don't yet but are going to try. 0% saying no, they won't be trying it at all. 71% saying they are already doing some, but there are areas for improvement, and nobody saying that there's no areas for improvement. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Well, hopefully there's some lessons that might be helpful for you from this. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope there's lots to learn from the next session for you as well. Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Mark, again. And
you know, some incredible measures there from what you're talking about, the savings that you guys have been making. It's really incredible. I just had a thought when you were talking about the improving things for the customer. Mark is actually going to be at one of our events at the end of May. So anyone who's listening who's in the UK and you fancy coming along and hearing a bit more about how Mark and the team have achieved some of those amazing customer satisfaction levels, do have a look on the website or reply to the email in your webinar invite and I can tell you a bit more about that. But yeah, as I say, we'll be coming to Mark for questions at the end. So we'll speak to you again in a little bit, Mark. Meanwhile,
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand presenter control then over to our next presenter today, Mike Beckett of Everbridge. As I say, Mike is Senior Solution Consultant for IT Alerting. So he's got some really great stuff to share with us as well today. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, hi.
Hi. So you should now see, let me just make sure this poll is hidden, sorry. You should now be able to see the share your screen with us.
Screen.
Yep. Fantastic. And I'll let you continue with your presentation, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thanks everybody, and thanks Mark. That was really interesting to understand how you're using automation in this space, and we're going to talk more about automation and specifically around areas of the service desk that Mark was referring to. So my name's Mike Peck. I'm from Everbridge. We're specialists in communications, and IT alerting is my speciality. So how do we get communication out, communication to everybody around the IT alerting space? And how can we help organizations drive business with communication? So as you can see from the slide, it says, on the best of days, not everybody gets the message, and that's a real problem for us. So, we might be in different places in the world, we might be in different places in the country, we might just be in two different offices at each end of the same country, but communication, is really important to us, and the challenges based around that communication is really important. So really, what are we talking about? The problem today, and some of the things that Mark's been talking about, is the issue around the service desk that is just really becoming way more complex than we need it to be. With distributed teams, with the multiple support centers that we have, teams are just being overwhelmed, and they're being overwhelmed with incoming alerts. Mark talked about in the beginning there of how many alerts they were getting on, with respect to a relatively small team, to deal with that number of alerts. So, really getting overwhelmed with alerts. And then when an operator or a help desk, service desk person gets the alert, who are they going to contact? Who is on call? Where are they? What region are they in? What time zone are they in? And actually, how do I contact them? Email is not going to wake them up if it's the middle of the night for them. We need to have this kind of way of really communicating and being able to reach out to people who may not be in our own time zone or own location, and really make sure they not only communicate and get involved, but they actually take some responsibility for the things that are going on. As we can see from this data, more and more companies are really investing in multiple sites and multiple countries, in the organizations. Less than half of organizations today only have one support center. That's quite a revelation, really, when you consider our technical market, our technological market that we're driving and we're pushing, and things are getting more and more automated with our smartphones and our devices. More of that digital world that's coming about, we're having to develop how we support that environment and how reactive and how much quicker we need to be when it comes to supporting those environments. And hence, having more than one support center across multiple regions is becoming very common. But of course, that really adds to the complexity of that as well. Now, there's various studies have been done over time about the issues related to the cost of an IT issue. So if we understand that our service desk is struggling because it's becoming overwhelmed, as I said, with incidents and tickets coming in, and there's delays on who we contact, you know, we really need to look at, well, actually, how much is it costing us on a minute-by-minute basis? Now, for some, you know, background operations, or maybe, you know, the taskbar in Microsoft not necessarily being displayed correctly, it's not going to cost you, you know, $5,600 a minute. There's no question about that. It does have some impact on the productivity, but we could be talking about, you know, a major high street bank with an outage. I believe there was one recently reported in the UK that had problems actually delivering their services for 2 days. People had to go to their high street branch, which is quite foreign to a lot of people these days. They don't actually go to their high street branch. So when you start looking at those kind of outages, you can start to see that actually $5,600 is not particularly high, and a lot of other estimates are coming in much closer to $9,000 or $10,000 per minute. So if we think about that, and then we put that against how long does it take us to actually resolve an incident or resolve something that's out there, you know, 200 minutes. This is again, research by the IT Process Institute have come up with this number and said actually on average for what they call a medium outage, this isn't your, you know, particular SEV1s or your very high issues, you know, it takes roughly 200 minutes on average to resolve that. Now, we'll use that number as an example in the next slide, because in the next slide, if we look at things, if we take that 200 minutes to be the time it takes you to actually resolve something, a large portion of that, according to Forrester, is about the time to know. How are you going to get people to understand that there's a problem, get them engaged, get them maybe on a conference bridge, maybe recording, maybe, you know, using some tools to integrate and communicate with. This is how we have to drive this. And you start to see the length of time an incident actually takes can be resolved in a lot of automated ways, but we really have to address this communication issue we have of actually getting hold of people, of helping the people on the service desk, maybe to automate that whole process, to drive out the manual part of reaching out to different people. So, you know, we understand that not all incidents are equal. So we talked about, you know, putting a dollar value per minute against an incident itself, but we understand that not all incidents have that priority. Not all incidents are going to be high impact and high urgency. You know, some of them are going to be much lower than that. And we need to address not only how we do the top end, but how we do the bottom end in industry. So the low issues. So if we consider the impact and emergency of request and incident, the problem with all the low impact and low urgency, there's typically a lot of them. They typically come in, you know, you know, I put a ticket in the other day which was low and low and low because I needed a new keyboard, and you know, that's being shipped to me over time, but nothing's being done quickly. But if we think of those incidents, you know, they're not going to cost us lots of money, but we do need to have a way of resolving them. And more companies are really looking at those low incidents to be, you know, real candidates for self-service. And I know Mark talked about some self-service or some, you know, artificial intelligence or some automated response at a very low level. He talked about sending a script out to his users that could automatically just run the script, and it fixes a problem that they've reported. And again, it's a low-level issue, and it only takes 2 minutes to solve, but now it only takes 20 seconds to solve because we have a script and we have some automation behind it. So self-service as a thing, as Mark was saying, he's investing in self-service in a big way to help users from a lower level. We're increasing knowledge base information. We're documenting every documented fix of things can be put in a library and is now searchable and available. And I don't know about you, but how many times do you go to Google? You know, I wanted to put a sign in a PowerPoint presentation earlier today, and I went, well, hang on, how do I do that? And I quickly Googled it, and there it was. So self-service help on writing a document. That helped me. And, you know, a lot of people can do that these days. It's very, very simple. And then things like self-healing become a much easier solution as we get back-end automation automatically resolving things on target, you know, laptops, desktops, or iPhones and smart devices like that. More and more companies are investing in that because of that low-hanging fruit, those low-level incidents that are neither urgent nor critical to the business. And they're investing in things like AI, artificial intelligence, and chatbots. They're investing in cloud solutions that they can control much better and how they can drive that. Machine learning, service automation, and virtual agents. You know, how many times have you been to a website and it pops up, oh, how can I help you? I see you're interested in this, and you can start talking. And a lot of those things are virtual agents out there to help you and assist you through maybe a complicated process. So a lot of planned investments in that side of it. We're seeing more and more as we go around the internet and we drive different things. But let's go to the other end of the scale now, and let's really think about our high impact, high urgency service requests. You know, as my kids use all the time, OMG, you know, it is the OMG moment, the stress and pressure time, the time that the business really starts seeing a loss of revenue or productivity. And now we're starting to get into potential alert fatigue. Now, alert fatigue, what do I mean by that? Well, the problem is with a lot of the service desks, as we were talking about earlier, really keep getting lots of different tickets in for the same thing. And that's really what alert fatigue is. An operator who's looking at those tickets is looking at them going, oh, that's just this, we don't need to worry about that. And they're making a quick decision on something that actually may turn out to be critical because they'll miss the odd one that looks the same, and we assume it's the same. So alert fatigue is a huge problem. You know, lack of accountability within this space as you go to resolve things, you know, is also, it's really important as you go and start resolving your problems that you have someone who you can turn to and say, please will you go and fix this, and please will you come back and tell me when you fixed it so we can move on. You need to automate all of those processes. Why are these things happening today so much? Well, you know, there's this big move to digital. There's this big expansion of the data center, basically based around hybrid environments. You know, we can spin our environments out to the cloud. You know, that's exactly what Everbridge as an organization does. We have a very flexible, dynamic environment that we work on, and as it needs to grow for certain events that are happening, we can expand it or we can shrink it, and it can be very scalable based on our need at the time. But what actually happens in industry like that, yes, we rely on third parties and we rely on outsourcing, but we lose a lot of control and we lose the ability to bring out teams in very quickly and understand who's responsible and who it's necessary to involve to resolve this kind of problem. Again, it's aggravated totally by, as we've talked about already, multiple time zones and different countries and, you know, lack of communication. You know, that telegraph pole I showed you at the beginning, it's, you know, it's a great photo, but it really does show you the actual communication difficulties that there are when you start having multiple support centers that are not sitting in the same room. So the challenges we see today, we've sort of touched on fighting the alert fatigue, making people accountable, ensure, you know, the right people are there to address the issue. How many times do I hear on a regular basis that, well, we don't really know who to contact, so we're just going to send it out to the whole of the network team. And then 2 hours later, you know, you go back and you look at the ticket and you say, well, there's no movement on that ticket. What happened? Who notified someone? We sent an email to the network team. Well, we've already said email doesn't wake people up. This is the problem. So, you know, and again, you start getting into these high pressure, high cost situations, and you start getting confrontation. You know, you didn't respond to this. Well, you didn't notify me correctly. You can't expect me to wake up to the sound of an email. So, you know, driving the automation that Mark's been so passionate about and driving in his business, you know, can go off and eliminate a lot of human mistakes within that. The human is not really designed to do these repetitive tasks. They generally can't repeat tasks on a perfect basis, and that's exactly what Mark found, that those tasks need to be automated and those tasks need to be driven so that they're completely repeatable. And then as we get into things like compliance and legalization and those kind of things, it's important that we can actually prove that we are doing things in the correct way through automation. And then, you know, responding to customers' SLAs and making sure we're within the time allowed for resolving some of those things. So again, it's really not only making sure the exact response team is in place to fix the issue that's going on, but it's also important that we can effectively communicate with the people who are impacted by this. Maybe it's users. Maybe it'll be a really good idea as part of an incident of automation. You not only go out to the resolvers who are going to fix the problem for you, but actually you go out and communicate with the users of the environment, the users of the application, who will be impacted and probably be raising help desk tickets. So again, a knock-on effect to the fatigue and alert fatigue around the help desk is the very fact, communicate with the people who are impacted, because that will drive down the number of tickets you're getting. The impacted user will see, oh, I can see the service is out, it's going to be out for the next 20 minutes, then they'll let me know about what's happening. Then they'll go away and they'll make a cup of tea, probably come back 20 minutes later and get an update. Much better than just hitting the keyboard and inundating the service desk with incident requests. So just to sort of, I don't know, bring some argument to the environment. You know, I've been in automation for many years now, and I still haven't been replaced. It's interesting how we all thought, including me, many years ago when automation really started taking off, that it would start replacing us all. But it is a myth. It was a myth from the 2000 and maybe before. The reality is the work is actually shifting. The work and the ideas are shifting. You know, if we think about, you know, automated cars, we're going to take the driver out of the seat of driving the car. That doesn't mean that there's going to be less people who want to move around. It's probably going to mean there's more people who want to move around. We're going to need more cars. So work is not actually shifting away from a taxi driver maybe, but it's shifting more to the manufacturer and the support infrastructure around providing this driverless car as just one example of automation. And organizations have literally increased their workforce through adding automation into their process. They've increased their workforce because typically they can do more, you know, and then they can expand because they can generate more business, or they can work much more efficiently with their customer, and they get a much better customer satisfaction back from their customers, and therefore they can add people into the organization to start expanding into other areas as well. So really is a case that automation isn't going to replace us. We're all going to still be there. So if it's not going to replace us, then, you know, we've got to throw more people at it. Well, we all know that's not going to work either. You know, just trying to expand, you know, back in 2002, we had the big .com bubble burst, and that was because we literally were throwing people at a problem in the data center to try and get enough servers and enough service requests going through. But we couldn't support that model for very long, and hence, you know, that .com bubble really did go. So what can we really do if we can't just throw people at it? Well, that's where automation can help us fit. And you know that graph I showed you earlier with the much bigger, the higher urgency and higher impact issues, we need to start really think about automating the response around that area of the business. Because as we saw from the Forrester slide earlier, the percentage of time taken really in an incident these days, the far bigger piece is really around this response automation, getting the right people involved quickly and efficiently, without contention. So if we really think about it today, why is it so difficult and so time consuming? So if we see on the screen, we can see that I've tried to portray a typical scenario around an event. A critical event will come in, it'll either be via a business user or it'll be straight into the knock or sock environment. The service desk people will create a ticket for it. They'll then pass it on to potentially an incident manager. And the incident manager's responsibility really will be to go and find the right people, communicate with them. Initially, it will probably be email because it's easier. But ultimately, how are they going to do that? Because sometimes they're going to have to pick the phone up and try and wake people up. I always say, if you want me in the middle of the night, the best way to get me is to call my landline phone, because that will ring and wake me up. It will wake the rest of the house up as well, I agree, but at least it will wake me up. The chances that my mobile doing anything will wake me up, very unlikely. So the incident manager gets assigned, he goes and tries and gets his 5 people he needs to resolve his major incident on. He only gets 3 of them, he needs the other 2. So what does he do? He tries other methods of communication, still doesn't get them. He then has to go and escalate that to maybe the management or another line of support maybe. So he's, again, functionally trying to find out who the management is that he needs to get hold of, to talk to these people, to get them on the call. So the manager then makes calls, gets the 5 people on the environment, and then they can start working on the environment. And so our mean time to respond ends. But in our example we have here, we're suggesting that is 51 minutes. Going back to the Forrester slide, it's over 50% of the time it takes, of an entire incident. So a total of 51 minutes. So how do I resolve that? How do I make that quicker? Well, the best companies out there that are doing this really have a plan for when things go bad. Everyone's got a plan for when things go bad, because at the end of the day, we can pretty much guarantee they will. So, they go and they automate and they make sure their response process is error-free. We can't have issues getting hold of the right people in a high-stress, high-pressure environment. If it was, a situation at home, I'm sure someone's going to be shouting and causing lots of pressure and stressor within the family or something like that. But in work, it's less emotional. It's more drive it. We need to do it. This is costing us money. This is painful. A lot of people get a lot of stress from that. Very uncomfortable situation. And really, because of that, in those situations where they are stressed, people's behavior changes. So they start trying to duck responsibility. So if we automate the process and remove the stress and we remove the errors from the process, what we see is we actually see people change their behavior and start becoming more accountable within the process, because there is no confrontation anymore. There's no one standing shouting. There's no one getting annoyed because you're not doing something. It's all much, much easier to really drive that. So to give you an idea of how Everbridge's response automation around IT alerting is working, is we can take feeds from many different products out there, and you can see a group of them on the top there, ServiceNow, Jira, New Relic, Splunk, lots of different tools out there that are generating alerts or events that might lead to something quite disastrous in the business sense. Now, we can take feeds from there, or we can take feeds from incident tools like Remedy or ServiceNow or something like that. And depending on how your process works, depends on whether the service desk get the ticket created before getting the response team involved, or in a lot of cases today, I'm finding that it takes a number of minutes or a number, more than a couple of minutes to generate the incident ticket. And because of the time it takes to create that, a lot of companies want the incident ticket created, but in parallel, they want to be alerting and getting the people on board and connected up to talk. And Everbridge's ITA solution uses smart routing to understand who actually needs to be involved in this. So we don't email blast or communicate out with hundreds of people. We know who's on shift. We know who's available. We know the people who have the skills to actually deliver the fix to the service that's potentially down. We use a technology of multimodal communications. This is something we use throughout all our products, in our IT alerting and our emergency notification platforms, to get through to people in a multimodal capability. So they will, maybe it'll be their phone, maybe it'll be their landline at home, maybe it'll be their smart device, maybe it'll be their computer, if they're sat behind their computer at that time. Or it could be all of those. You could send the first alert, maybe goes to the application on the phone. The second alert is a text message. The third alert is actually a phone call with a voice on the end of it. If they haven't accepted it and said, yes, I can respond to this, it'll cascade through until it actually gets hold of them. Or if it cascades through and still doesn't get hold of them, it will automatically escalate that into the management team, or whoever needs to be involved if not enough people are responding to the incident. What it then gives us ability is it gives the responders a capability to drop into a collaboration zone, let's call it. A collaboration hub where we have smart conferencing so people can talk, which is a one-click conferencing solution. How many times have you got a call from someone and said, oh, can you jump on this conference call? And you've got to, get the phone number, and we can click the phone number okay on a smart device, but we've got to write down the conference ID because it's not linked to it. We have a one-click conferencing solution so that anyone who gets contacted and gets alerted as a resolver literally clicks one button and it takes them straight through to that conference ID. And there's security around that as well. A lot of these outages, you might want to make sure you've only got the right people on the phone, the right people there. And as you can see, the idea of, the examples we've played, and these aren't exact sciences, these are a group of slides of what we've generated from our customer responses so far, experience we've had deploying this so far. The total time to get those people on the conference call and starting working on the issue is down to 5 minutes. Now, if I go back through my presentation, I think about the amount of money it costs per minute for an incident, and we've gone from 51 minutes down to 5 minutes. If I just roughly calculate that out, that's roughly $250,000 that we've saved by reducing this amount of time. Slightly under $250,000, I'll accept, but in excess of 200,000. The important thing is that that's a saving. It's not only a saving in money, but actually, I think on the poll that Mark had, one of the most important benefits for you in automation was a saving of time. Okay, you've saved an awful lot of people's time, and you've saved a lot of people's time getting involved into and resolving this issue. Then, just on the flip side of all of this, when some of these major incidents happen, and we see them happen, one of the things we always try and do, I'm sure, and you do as organizations, is try and have a post-mortem to understand why the incident happened in the first place. It mustn't happen again. We must try and avoid that. But the follow-up to it really is that we can provide smart analytics here to allow you to provide a post-mortem on the collaboration, on the way we communicate, the way your teams spun up and got involved. So the key takeaways, I really don't want to sort of read this slide particularly, but working on the basis that Mark did about what's in it for me, the reality is your technical teams will end up with a much better work-life balance, believe it or not. I've spoken to many organizations who've taken on automation. And that's the key takeaway. The work-life balance is really important to the people working out there. We can focus automatically on the people who need to be involved, the on-call schedules, automatic escalation, you know, and it works with the solutions you have installed today. You know, many of you may have recognized some of the applications that we can take input from. I'm not sure if I talk to my developers, there's no application we can't take input from. We have a new iPaaS interface that can take input from any tool out there. I won't bother with the details of how that works, but it's relatively simple to set up. So, you know, we're all about resolving the time it takes to get to fixing the problem, okay? And, you know, we can help you automate, and we can look at how we can best address the automation within your organization. For further information, you know, I'm sure you want to find out more. Please go to italerting.com, and you can follow us on Twitter. The European Everbridge Twitter handle is there. And of course, standard websites like www.everbridge.co.uk, and some of the regions have got their own localized websites as well. So by all means, learn more. Thank you very much for your time. It's very much appreciated. And are there any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mike. And I love that. I love those really clear kind of illustrations of how that works and how where those savings come about. It's great. What I'll do, as I say, I will read out some questions for both our presenters. I'll start with you, Mike, as you're there on the line, just following on from your presentation. We've got a question in here about tell us a bit more about how Everbridge support different time zones and locations.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we've talked about service desks and support centers being in multiple time zones, and the difficulty of getting communication across those time zones.
Yeah.
Everbridge as a company is into alerting in many different ways. Emergency notifications. We have a total suite of 7 products that we work on a single platform that is all about communication. We have agreements across the board with many worldwide organizations, because a lot of people don't understand the difficulties in getting messages of different levels to different parts around the world. We quite happily sit there on our phone and text someone in a different country, and it seems to go through and work. That person in that different country, if they wanted to connect to a conference bridge from a different country, they may be paying international dialing rates to get back to that information. And that, in some countries, can be, you know, extortionate, and a lot of people wouldn't want to do it. So we've spent an awful lot of time investing in infrastructure in the global network to be able to route local calls. So, you know, I talked about people, you know, being alerted maybe in a different time zone, a different country from where the alert took place. So you want them to join the conference bridge because their skills are needed. So we can send out, by understanding who they are, communication to them, and we can give them a local modality for them to communicate back to the Everbridge environment and get on the conference call. So any call that they have that they need to make into the conference system will actually be a local call. So it's a great question, because communication is expensive, and as we said at the beginning, it's quite complex. But Everbridge have invested a lot of years in making sure our network can support almost any region and any country.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So just having a look at some of the questions that came in earlier nearer the beginning, and if you're on the line now, people that posted a while ago whilst Mark was speaking, thank you for staying with us. So Mark, if you just jump back online, let me put one or two of these to you. So, oh, are you there, Mark? Bear with us for 1 second. Just going to have a look, see if we've still got Mark on the line. So, oh, hello. Yeah, there you are.
Oh, here we go. Yep, sorry.
No, fine. So the first question I can see here that came in, Mark, during your session was from Jamal, and he's asked whether automation helped you to shift left, so tasks that were being done by a second and third line into the service desk or into first line.
Yeah, that certainly helped with shifting some of that, because we were able to get those teams to help us create knowledge articles for the desk that get pulled up within the ticket, so that when the desk are creating a ticket, they're typing details in, it's surfacing information for them. And they can then, the third level teams have provided that information to them about things to check and do before they escalate. So that's taken away some of the work from the third level teams that was getting escalated to them.
Okay, right, yeah. And there was another question here now. It's quite a long question, so I'm just going to try and split it if I can. Question from Alan. He's asking whether you've seen any changes in headcount. I think you did touch on the fact that you kind of get people doing different jobs. But overall, did it go up, down, stay the same due to automation?
Headcount has increased, really. I think part of the automation is we were taking away those a lot of those tasks where we were adding no value and getting more time to do those tasks where we were adding value, doing more of that proactive stuff, and by doing more of that proactive stuff, raising expectations of the customers, and we were then able to justify the headcount to say this is what we're doing and this is what we're delivering for the organisation. And if we get another person, we can do this much more and deliver this much more.
Yeah, okay, and it kind of does lead on to the next part of Alan's question, which is he says that the challenge is there could be a challenge in maintaining the automation system itself. And additional infrastructure. So how have you rationalised the return on investment? So I guess was any of it offset by additional kind of maintenance or anything like that?
I mean, the automation that we're doing at the moment is all within our service management tool.
Yeah.
So it's all built into the tool. So we weren't buying lots more things. We were using things that we were already invested in. So SCCM we already had in and running, and we're using within our technology team. Our service management tool was already there, and it was just about automating links between those. We didn't buy anything extra in to do that. So it was more about saying we're better using this stuff that we've got already, making and getting a better return on investment from the stuff you've already invested in.
Yeah, okay, great. Hopefully, Alan, that answers your questions. So just another one for Mike, if I can. Let me have a look here. This comes from Ryan. And he's asking what the best, if you could kind of pick one out, what's the best automation process that you've put in place that's been best received by your customers? So it's probably a tricky question, but off the top of your head, Mike, do you have any?
Well, of course, it's the Everbridge solution. How could it be anything else?
A particular part of what you guys have?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things. I think, some people are very efficient at running what we call call trees, which is ultimately a list of phone numbers they go down, and they get very quick at doing that, which means the MTTR isn't quite as long as it could be, and they can shorten that. But one of the things that most of our customers are most impressed with is our ability to drop very easily and quickly into conference facilities, and not only actually have the conference there, but the conference recorded, and any chats that are going on via Slack or Sharp or anything like that are recorded and added to the ticket. And then much more nowadays, we're starting to see the actual response automation dashboards that are starting to show how teams are responding, are more interesting at a higher level, maybe more of an executive level. Not for any negative connotations, but actually it was a point that a caller made earlier about how have people increased, how have we where have you increased through having automation? Well, automation doesn't only automate all those mundane things, but it also starts to show you where maybe you're not staffed correctly, maybe where, you know, things are not going correctly because you don't have the right people or enough people in place. So there's another efficiency gain. So looking at a post-mortem of how you responded to an incident can highlight that maybe a team is way too understaffed for what it's being relied on, and hence, again, sort of job creation in that space to help that team out.
Okay, all right, thank you. You both shared an amazing amount of information today, and we have run slightly over time, so to the guys that are still on there, thanks for sticking with us, and we will leave it there for questions for today. I did mention earlier on...
I was just going to say, Zoe, if you've still got questions, come along to the event at the end of May. If you've got questions for me, I'll be there, happy to answer them.
Absolutely, thank you, Mark. Yeah, and you can just go to our website, servicedeskinstitute.com. There's an events tab at the very top. You'll see all our events under there, including our next webinars. So our next live webinar is this time next month. So have a look at that, and if you'd like to register for that one as well, you can do. So yeah, just left to say thanks to everyone for listening today, and thank you again, Mike and Mark, for taking part. It's been really fantastic.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hope to see everyone soon at another webinar. Thanks.